Hey, good morning, everyone. My name is Kyle Arcurio. My call sign is Longarm, and I'm excited to be talking with you today about STEM and kind of my career path, how I got to where I am here at Edwards Air Force Base, and my story. So, I do have a few slides that we will reference along the way, but I'm super stoked to be here, and this is one of my favorite things to do in my career, as you will soon find out. So I'll just be going over my career in education and touch on some other points along the way. So I graduated college from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in Prescott, Arizona, and I got a degree in aerospace engineering, my undergraduate. I also participated in Air Force Reserve Officer Training Corps, or AFROTC as they call it, which is additional classes that discusses Air Force history, doctrine, and leadership principles as part of the program between sophomore and junior year. I went to boot camp. It was about a month long, and after that, continued in my schooling. That was over the summer that the boot camp was. And then once I graduated, I became an Air Force officer. So Air Force has enlisted and officers, and typically officers, the requirement is for at least a bachelor's degree from a 4-year university is the minimum. And so that's a requirement since officers are often leaders and in charge of a lot of people and projects. And so through that, I also did some additional training, which I'll touch on later once I entered the Air Force. Currently at Edwards Air Force Base, as far as my education and training, I've received a test and evaluation certification through online Defense Acquisition University, which is required training for us civilian engineers. And then I also went through test conductor training, which I'll talk about later about what a test conductor is. I've also done aircrew training to be able to fly and fly safely. And then my hopes in the future is in this springtime to begin my master's degree in systems engineering. And then maybe a couple years from now, apply to Air Force Test Pilot School and hopefully get picked up for that. So we'll see, but that's the goals I've set for myself, and I'm motivated to accomplish those. So discussing my previous career, I'll kind of jump around a bit, but I was in the Air Force, as I mentioned, after graduating college. I was in the Air Force for just over 4 years as an active duty officer. I went to Pensacola, Florida for combat systems officer training, which is a navigator, essentially, electronic warfare officer or weapons system officer. So they kind of combined those career fields into one and got training through there. So if some of you may not get this reference, but it's like Goose on Top Gun. You might be a little too young for the movie, but maybe you saw that movie. If not, the second movie is coming out in the future. Anyway, so I went to training for that, and I was in that for about a year, learning how to fly and how to navigate and how to direct missions and do electronic warfare, and also do some weapons system stuff. I got to fly in the T-6 Texan II, which is like a 2-seat propeller aircraft. You get to wear the helmet and the G-suit and look like a fighter pilot, which is kind of cool. It was a lot of fun, a lot of hard work too. Flying is a very different world, and there's a lot of rules in the air that you need to know about to fly safely and conduct missions properly as well. But unfortunately, about after I was in the program for a year, I ran into some medical issues, and so it was a little devastating not being able to fly. I was put on a medical hold for a while, but they put me to work in the training house, helping with a lot of administrative stuff with the training program and being a leader for some of the students and whatnot. And then I eventually became the registrar for the program, which is managing the students who enter and exit the program and helping assist the pipeline of the training. And I met a lot of awesome people along the way. Had a lot of fun, even though it wasn't what I wanted, because I thought I would be flying for the 20 years in the Air Force. That was my plan, because from a very young age I wanted to be an astronaut, and I wanted to be able to fly and work towards that goal. But it didn't work out. But also, I learned a lot of good lessons along the way, and like I mentioned, worked with a lot of great people. After I got out of the Air Force as a captain, I went to Lockheed Martin, Skunk Works, down in Palmdale, and got to work there in flight operations, and then eventually as a flight test engineer. I'm going to kind of sit on this for a while because I have a history with Skunk Works, which I'll cover. I grew up in Lake Isabella, California, which is about 2 hours away in the mountains. Small mountain community, small schools. And in the 6th grade, Lockheed Martin came out to our school and gave us an opportunity for a STEM weekend event that they were holding called Lightspeed. And so me being in the 6th grade and having seen Edwards aircraft fly over Lake Isabella all the time, that's kind of what piqued my interest to begin with in aviation and wanting to be an astronaut. And so I wrote an essay, and I was selected as one of the students to be able to go. There's probably 20 or 30 of us that went, and we got to go to the Skunk Works on a Saturday and Sunday. We did a lot of STEM activities. They showed us cool airplanes and videos. We got to meet the engineers who worked there, and they told us, about the cool stuff they were working on, at least what they could. And then I met some test pilots as well. One who flew the SR-71 Blackbird, which is the fastest jet that goes Mach 3 plus. And then I also met a F-117 test pilot who the F-117 is a stealth fighter, the first stealth aircraft that was built by Lockheed. And so that was very inspiring, and I talked with him about his career path and me wanting to be an astronaut. And after that weekend, I stayed in touch with those engineers and JB, the test pilot, who I believe spoke earlier this week. And I stayed in contact with them over the years to just discuss my career goals, and they inspired me to pursue aerospace engineering because it's all about how airplanes work and are designed, which is what I'm interested in, airplanes. And so bring it back, when I got out of the Air Force, I contacted those engineers and JB, and was able to get hired by JB. So 16 years later is when I, from where I first went to Skunk Works as a student to being able to work there for one of my childhood heroes who was a test pilot. And so I got to be a flight operations analyst, which if you see the slides on the bottom is dealing with just all the aircraft that flew in, and I got to help organize a small static air show, so personal aircraft that were displayed on the ground, kind of in the lower right-hand portion. And then eventually I became a flight test engineer, which I will talk about more. And I got to work on some cool skunky stuff, which that's all I can say. But it was very interesting. Worked with a lot of smart people and doing cool stuff. And then once about a year ago, I saw an opportunity about working at Edwards as a flight test engineer on the F-35. And so that is what I'm doing now. I'm not in the Air Force anymore, but I'm working as a civilian for the Air Force on the F-35 as a flight test engineer. Now, if you don't know about the F-35, there's three variants. There's the A model, F-35A, which is like for the Air Force, the United States Air Force, as well as our allies. And then there's the B model, which is for the Marines, which is the one that, if you've seen pictures or videos, it can take off, or it can land vertically and do a short takeoff. And then the C model is the Navy version, which can take off of boats, the Navy ships. It gets catapulted off. It's a little different than the A and B model in that it has bigger wings that can fold up. And so that's what I'm working on, doing developmental flight test engineering for the F-35 and bringing new capabilities to the warfighter to keep our country safe, as well as our allies, and bomb bad guys if we need to, in order to keep everyone safe, our troops on the ground. If you could go back to my slides real quick so I can reference them. There's the F-35 slide. So there's the different pictures of the F-35. And so I am what's called a test conductor. There's a few flavors of flight test engineers, one being a test conductor, and then what we call discipline engineers, which are people who are educated in specific areas about the aircraft, so perhaps the engine or the computer systems or the structural design of the aircraft. And so next slide is, what is a flight test engineer? So it is an engineer, as it's in the name, so someone who knows a lot about the system under test, which is basically the aircraft, the F-35. I have to know things that the pilot knows. But then I have engineering knowledge about the aircraft and how it works, and then also some flight operation knowledge, so what the test pilots are doing in the air. So on the administrative side of things, we formulate test requirements, we prepare and coordinate test plans and flight schedules and test procedures. We make flight test cards that the pilots use to get to conduct the tests, and we help write test reporting. In the execution portion, so the administrative is kind of the build-up, and then leading up to the flight. The execution is what we do during the flight. So if you know what a conductor is, so that middle picture there, it's the guy or gal who directs the musicians. That's kind of what we do in the testing. So we're in a big room, and we act as a kind of a conduit between the engineers, the really smart people, looking at the different systems of the aircraft and parameters, and then we're talking to the test pilot who's in the air doing the tests. We're kind of the go-between, and we're also kind of moving the test along depending on what test cards we have that we want to execute and the goals of our testing. And so it's a lot of fun. I have a lot of fun. I think it's more up my alley. I'm not so much an engineer that wants to focus on one thing. I like the aspects, since I flew before, of being able to relate to the pilot and kind of being in my mind in the air of what is happening, and then as well as having the engineering basis of being able to translate to the pilot what we're needing. So that's one portion. So acting as a test conductor in a big room with computers and talking to the pilot, or sometimes we fly as a crew member if the aircraft has more than one seat, which you see the jet down there is a F-16D model, which has 2 seats, and I've helped out with some testing for the F-16, as well as supporting F-35 testing as a safety chase. So having the aircraft up there with it just to make sure everything's being safe while we're doing testing, or acting as a target for any other testing that we're doing where the F-35 pretends to shoot at us, or just try to learn more about what the targets are doing. So it's very interesting work, and I'm glad to be flying again. And if you could go back to my slides. So we managed the test. So some speed bumps along the way. I mentioned went to college. College is expensive, so I didn't know much about financial aid or loans, so I needed to learn more about that. I did get the Air Force ROTC scholarship, which they helped pay for some of my schooling. The Air Force did, and I also got a monthly, it's called a stipend, so some money during the month to help pay for food or whatnot. In the Air Force, I mentioned I got medically disqualified from flight training due to the Air Force's strict standards. So that was kind of devastating, but and I eventually separated from the Air Force. So those were 2 things I was not expecting, thinking I would have a 20-year career in the Air Force, and it was only 4. So some of my lessons learned, my L cubed, is that no matter where you find yourself, be positive and be the best person you can be in order to impact whatever mission your organization has. I say mission because I was Air Force, and but it could be whatever, maybe you work in a restaurant, so your mission would be feeding people good food. So you want to impact your mission, the organization, so the people you work with as well. And never stop setting goals for yourself. So I mentioned I met a lot of people along the way, and was grateful enough to work alongside them. We had a lot of fun. We worked hard, and I wouldn't trade that for anything. And then I mentioned as well, I hope to go to test pilot school someday. So I'm still setting goals for myself. So some career advice. I know you're in high school and you may not know what you want to do, or maybe you have something in mind but you don't know where to go. So my first career advice is pursue whatever you're interested in. I was interested in airplanes, and so I wanted to do something with airplanes. And for me today, any day is a good day if I can see, touch, smell, or even better, ride inside of an airplane. So the second thing is speak with someone who does what you're interested in, or know someone who does, and find out the path to get there. So that's called networking. And so just learning about the career field you're interested in, what education or training might be required. And then the next step would be to take a step towards that education and training. So if it's college, like a 2-year degree is required, or 4-year, or even maybe you want to be a doctor of some sort, have a doctorate degree, look into that and set some goals for yourself. Or on the technical side, go to tech schools or vocational training, whatever might be up your alley in the career field that you're looking for. See what kind of training and experience you can gain from that. And then number 4 is network. So refer back to number 2, which is talk with someone who's in the field. I told you I stayed in contact with the engineers that I had met back in 1998 when I was in 6th grade. And I got to work with some of them, and I told you I worked for JB. And so the last thing is, once you're in your career, continue to set goals for yourself. And I told you about some of mine, but maybe you get into a career where you find it's not what you thought it was, and you might want to switch careers. Well, start talking to someone, start looking into what needs to be done, and then go along your way. So this is kind of what I talked about. And I think now is the time where I'll open it up for any questions you guys might have about anything, my career or education, or even airplanes or the F-35 in general. I'm happy to talk with you about whatever.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. One question is, what does it feel like to be in the Air Force as a civilian? Since you were in the Air Force, enlisted, or as an officer, sorry, what is it like going back to the Air Force as a civilian?
In a lot of ways, it's like going back home um, because there's a lot of camaraderie in the Air Force, and especially among flying squadrons. Um, and so that's kind of what I missed when I was at Lockheed. It's just very different down there. It has its own sort of camaraderie, but being a civilian, I'm viewed as a contributor to our mission, and I appreciate that. And I'm grateful to work alongside all those who serve in the military and protect us, protect our nation. It's an honor, and I'm glad that I got to do that. And I'm glad I get to still support them and help keep them safe with our aircraft, make sure our aircraft are safe, and make sure they're effective for the mission.
Perfect. So, next question. You talked about networking. What is a way for the high school students to begin networking?
So, depending on what you're looking into, um, you can speak with any of your teachers. That's a resource, or your parents, or maybe friends of the family, anyone who might know something about whatever you're looking towards, whether it's education or training or some sort of career field, or even just a job down the street that you need to make some money to be able to work towards whatever goals you have.
Perfect. Thank you for that. So, when you were in high school, did you imagine yourself being where you are at now, working for the Air Force?
Not particularly where I am now, but like I said, I had high goals for myself and I knew that I wanted to go into the Air Force and work with jets and um, and get through college, fly, and go to test pilot school, become an astronaut, and that's just kind of the cookie cutter path that I've read books about or seen movies about, people who inspired me, and so that's the kind of direction I went, and just chopping away at each step so that I could essentially do what I wanted to do. Things have changed now, but I still am setting goals for myself to pursue what I want, and I'm very happy where I am today. Yesterday, I conducted a flight test mission with the F-35, which is an awesome career thing. I like doing that. It's fun and interesting to me and challenging. Today is my second favorite thing, or not second, but other favorite thing to do is speak with students about STEM and pursuing their dreams. And then tomorrow, if you're over Palmdale, Lancaster, Bakersfield, Tehachapi, Rosemond, or Cal City, then look to the skies because I'll be in the back of one of the F-16s flying over. So this is a big and fun week for me, doing kind of the trifecta of what I value in a career, as far as working on jets, flying in jets, and then talking with students.
I have to agree, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Looking back, did you ever feel discouraged, and how did you kind of overcome that?
So for me, I'll say the Air Force and the dashing of my dreams, if you will, was a very difficult thing. I have an amazing wife who stuck alongside me and went through it all with me, and so I'm grateful for her. But I had a lot of good supervisors and bosses who were rallying alongside me. But also what's big for me is my faith. And so just having the faith and the resources that I did, I was very involved in my local church and my chapel on the base and helping out there. And so that was the main crutch for me, was just having a belief in something bigger than myself, someone bigger than myself, to be able to have comfort that everything was going to be okay. And honestly, I think this career path is more up my alley, rather than flying in the back of jets and going to war and stuff. I get to fly in the back of jets and support testing, and I think that fits my personality more. So, looking back, it was hard to go through a lot of stuff, but I'm grateful for where I am today and how things turned out. And, the future is still ahead of me, so a lot can change, good or bad. And I just, yeah, am able to depend on someone better than myself for that.
Awesome, thank you. I think it's awesome that you're still setting goals for yourself even after you graduated college and you're working where you want to be at now and you still have goals that you want to reach. So I think that's pretty awesome. And last question, a question that I like to ask a lot. What is your favorite aircraft?
Oh, mine. Since I have strong ties with Lockheed, it's a Lockheed aircraft. In fact, it's this one, the F-22. So the test pilot I met, JB, was the F-117 test pilot. He eventually became the chief test pilot at F-22 a few years later, and he flew that for a while. And I just think that's a really awesome aircraft. I don't know everything that it can do and how it compares to the F-35, but the Lockheed Martin also made the F-35, and its capabilities are amazing, and I'm still learning more and more about it every day that I go to work, and it amazes me how smart the people were who designed it and how smart the people are who are testing it now. And so I know that the F-22 is a very capable aircraft as well, and I think it looks cool, and it performs amazing as far as its flight characteristics and everything. And so yeah, if there was a back seat in that, I would definitely want to fly it. But otherwise, I hope to work on it someday. But yeah.
Perfect. Well, it looks like that's all the time we had for questions and answers. Thank you so much for your presentation and speaking to the students, kind of giving them an insight to what you do here at Edwards Air Force Base. And next, we'll hand it off to our NASA educators.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody. Good morning. Thank you for being here at the Aerospace Valley Air Show. We would like to thank Edwards Air Force Base for 12th Test Wing for this great opportunity to connect with you. My name is Monica Uribe. I'm the NASA Armstrong Flight Research Center Education Specialist. And today it is a pleasure for me to introduce to you to our amazing April Lanat. She's the Director of Education at Wings over the Rockies Air and Space Museum in Denver, Colorado. She's going to be presenting the lesson for today. Thank you, April.
Thank you, Monica. Welcome, everyone, and thanks for being here. I'm really excited to take part in all of this. Like Monica said, my name is April Lanat, and I am currently the Director of Education at Wings Over the Rockies Air and Space Museum in Denver, Colorado. So a really great place to be. And in addition, I also do education support for NASA's Aeronautics Research Mission Directorate and NASA's Space Technology Mission Directorate. So I'll go through a little bit today of what I do, and then I will introduce a STEM module about advanced air mobility that I think you might enjoy using in your classroom. So I'm going to share my screen here. I have a little bit of a presentation for you, and we'll get started. So as you can see, let me start my slideshow here. Pardon me. All right, here we go. So I'm going to be talking to you today about advanced air mobility, what that is, and how you can bring that to your classroom. as a little bit of an introduction, like I said, so I do education support for NASA Aeronautics and NASA Space Technology. If you joined in on the last presentation, you saw that the gentleman who was speaking is a civilian now working with the Air Force. And so like that, I am a contractor for NASA. There are many of us who are contractors. And so a lot of us wind up having 2 jobs. So not too bad of a deal. Little tidbit, I'm originally from Mars, Pennsylvania. I have a little picture there in the slide of our hometown, which has a little UFO sitting there made out of cement. So kind of fun. That's where I grew up. My family is still there. I think I was destined to take part in aviation and space. I didn't necessarily think I was going to go into education at the beginning of my career, but that's where it led. And I always loved aviation and space. And I fell in love with education as I started getting involved with that when I was in college. And merging the two was just a natural fit for me. So I love what I do. I've been in education for just over 26 years now. Started off as a middle school teacher and then high school. Then did some work, with NASA full-time as a education fellow, and then worked at the university in Colorado. And then I took on the education director position, all the while being a contractor with NASA, continuing what I do. So I work on a lot of different projects. What's really great about doing education support is that I get to be a part of lots of different missions that we do here at NASA. So I have done projects that focus on human survival at high altitudes. I put a picture there on the right showing high altitude pressure suits that are used by both the Air Force and by NASA as well. I work with UAVs, and otherwise known as drones. So SUAVs, those are the small drones, and advanced air mobility, which I'll be introducing you to here in just a minute. And then I'm also currently working with our X-plane series, which is incredibly exciting as well. Our X-planes, we have our X57 and our X59 that we're working on right now. The X59 focuses on quieting the sonic boom. And the other one, the X57, is an all-electric aircraft. So very exciting technologies that NASA's working on and kind of leading the way. So I want to transition here to advanced air mobility. And I have a link on the website here to AAM, as we call it. We like our acronyms at NASA. So advanced air mobility, what is that? Well, basically what we're helping to do is we're helping to develop systems of air transportation, and these systems will help move people and cargo between places that haven't really been served well by aviation in the past, or they've just been served a little. And so it's everything from when you've probably heard about, the advancement of air taxis and UAVs delivering delivering packages to people. So, in the future, Amazon and UPS and others will most likely deliver some packages by drone, which is a really interesting endeavor. It's exciting, but it also brings about all kinds of questions about safety, air traffic. How do we manage this so that the skies don't just become full of all kinds of random aircraft? There are jokes about the Jetsons and, are we entering that age? And we are in certain ways. And one of the ways that NASA leads the charge on this is figuring out safe management systems on how we can do that without everyone crashing into each other. So advanced air mobility has a lot of different components to it. Again, if you go to NASA's website or just do a search for advanced air mobility, you can find out a lot more about it. And to do that and to work with teachers, we also developed our STEM learning module that has many different lessons in it. Here's a little picture right there of the cover of our advanced air mobility module. And some of the activities that it has within it are an air taxi design challenge, where students are asked to design an air taxi of the future. We have some more straightforward content activities, such as finding the center of gravity of an object. Another one that we'll go a little more in depth with, which is our SUAV or our small UAV safety activity, and then also a package delivery drone simulation. Again, I'll show these off a little bit, two of them off a little more in depth here in a minute. There are other activities, and I encourage you to go to our website and check those out. And so, oops. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pull up for you our first module. So overall, if you take a look at our STEM learning module, what you will see here, I apologize, my screens are not playing nicely with you. So hold on, bear with me 1 second here. All right, so if you go, let's see, Monica, can you see my screen, the NASA web?
No,
Actually, April, can you switch to your displays, please? Because we are not able to see.
Oh, okay, sorry about that. I thought I had this all figured out here, so bear with me 1 second.
Thank you, April.
apologize. So technical challenges here, right? So let's see. All right,
Thank
is that showing up now?
no, we're still
No.
seeing your camera.
Okay, sorry about that, guys. I thought I had everything all figured out. Darn it. Okay, well, I will talk through the activity here. While you see that, I'll try to mess with that, but I don't want to. I don't want to mess anything else up. So, alrighty here. So if you take a look, so one of our activities that we have here is that we have a safety poster design activity. And so what the idea is that students will then design a poster. So they will these students, so what you'll do is you'll go on to.
Thank you, April. We are able now to see your presentation.
Oh, great. Thank you. Rather than my face, you don't need to see my face. So, so the SUAV safety poster again. So what you'll be doing is you will be going on to websites and finding out the safety protocols of flying a drone. So many of us, we can go out to the store, we can buy a drone today, we can fly it around, but that doesn't mean that we can fly it safely. And one of the things you may have noticed in the news is that there are lots of different things that are going on where you have wildfire fighters who are grounded where they can't fly their aircraft because a drone is getting in the way, for example. So, so this safety poster design activity has students look at the safety protocols of drones and to create a safety poster that matches some of the considerations they need to think about. One of the terms we like to use at NASA is ethical airmanship. And it's the question of not just what is legal and what you're allowed to do, but what should you do? So it covers everything from, you know, should you fly over someone's head? The answer is no on that, by the way. And that is, you know, a safety consideration. Should you be flying over people's dogs? Should you be flying drones over someone's yard? So all of these different types of things that are both safety and ethical considerations. And so the safety poster requires very little materials in terms of educators. So really you just ask students to create on poster paper or even on a, you know, a regular sheet of paper, a safety poster that outlines some of the considerations for flying drones. So when you should and when you shouldn't. And that activity is outlined within our guide. The other activity that I want to talk about a little bit is our package delivery drone simulation. And in that activity, what we're asking students to do is they are expected to develop a delivery route for a drone. So as you can imagine, as we develop our safety protocols for flying drones in society to deliver packages or people, there will be areas where you can fly. There will be other areas where you can't fly. And so, for example, you can't fly near an airport. The first consideration is always that that crewed aircraft take precedent over unmanned aircraft. So if you have a drone, the drone always has to give way to an aircraft that would carry people. So there are perimeters around an airport where you cannot fly a drone. So as you're planning these delivery routes, they'll have to be carefully planned, and you'll have to avoid fenced off, so to speak, areas where you can't fly. And so what students are tasked to do using Scratch programming is to develop a delivery drone route and code it to get around. So when you imagine drone deliveries in the future, these are not going to be people standing there with a, with a drone and holding their transponder and physically flying their drone to someone's house or to a business or a location. Instead, these will be programmed drones. They will fly autonomously, following a specified route, and land accordingly. So the challenge for students is to code these drones simulated on the computer to reach their destination and return home while avoiding no-fly zones. So it does require a bit of knowledge about Scratch programming, or you can use any kind of drag and drop programming like that. These are available for free, and it's more of an issue of just making sure that you have access to a program like that, that students are familiar enough with those programs to be able to be successful, and then to code their drone simulation and try it out. So that's one of the other activities that you can have students do. The other activities are an air, so we have rubber band powered helicopter engineering challenge as well. So students can work on building a rubber band powered helicopter. So quadcopters, most drones, when we think of those, are quadcopters, or they have 4 rotors. So basically a helicopter times 4. And in order to understand the science behind helicopters in general, we do have a rubber band powered helicopter activity. So students are designing and testing those out. We also do have some that we have an activity, the science behind quadcopters. And when it comes to the science behind quadcopters, there's a lot of science that goes into that. Newton's laws are a great topic that's covered whenever we think about quadcopters. There is the spin of the rotors, there's counter rotation, there are lift and drag, thrust, all kinds of different elements that that even if you don't have something built into your standards, that you can add this and cover some of those basic concepts that need to be covered. So we do have a student guide for that as well. For those of you who teach math, we do have some graphing activities. So we have quadrant activities, simple ones, more complex. We also have distance formulas. So we have students who are calculating distance, time, and several different elements that are using that. And then, so we also have a distance and speed formula component. And then we have a 4th activity with our math that also uses the Pythagorean theorem. So lots of different ways for you to interact with students and still cover your core content, which is exciting. If you go to that STEM module, what you also see are videos with backgrounds about what is advanced air mobility. So if you want to find out more, if you want to let your students find out more, there are all kinds of places to look. There are test beds that NASA's using to test out all of these different systems. So basically we have these flight space areas that are out in basically the middle of nowhere. So they test out these different systems to sense and avoid one another, how to make skies safe. The final link that we have there as well is we have what we call NASA STEMonstrations. So we have Newton's 3rd law of motion. So we have some fun videos for students to watch. So lots of different activities, lots of different ways for you to get involved, for students to get involved, and really pull in something that a lot of students are probably already interested in. So that's a lot thrown your way, but that activity guide has all kinds of interesting things for you. So please do check it out. Another way to get involved and to stay up on the different things that are happening as well is that we do have a NASA Aeronautics for Educators Facebook page. So I invite you to join that as well. And that is a place where We post in general twice a week, although sometimes more if we have lots of exciting things going on. The first post of the week is generally focused on content. So if you want to learn more about the X-59, if you want to see some pictures of the X-59 being built, you know, these are some great ways to see what NASA Aeronautics is up to. And the second post of the week is generally focused on education activities and ways to interact. We have a robust group of educators who are a part of this page. And so educators will jump in and offer, you know, suggestions on what they're doing. NASA will share their suggestions. So it's a great place to be, to interact with other educators who also have similar interests to you as well. There are also lots of other additional resources, and many of you are probably familiar with lots of resources that we do have at NASA for educators and for students. So if you'll look at the bottom link, the STEM Express. So our NASA Express newsletter comes out once a week. You sign up for it, and it'll send you a blast of all kinds of different educational activities that are available for you, for your students, at both the K-12 level, university level. It's a great place to find out. Those of us who do work with NASA are always the first place we go when we have something new is we put it into the STEM Express so that everyone can interact with that and see what's going on. We do have our NASA at Home page, and the NASA at Home page is for kids and families. It's really for anyone. And the idea is that educators don't need to, you know, it's not full of lesson plans for educators, but instead it's something that families can utilize without the direction of an outside influence. So they can jump on, watch some videos, do some activities, all different, you know, all different resources. Moving up the line, we have our ERA research. Resources for K-12, and that's where you can find lots of lesson plans, activities. Our STEM modules, including the AAM STEM module, is located there. We have other STEM modules as well. We have videos, we have leveled readers. So if you're trying to find ways to integrate literacy into your classroom, we have resources for you there as well. And then last but certainly not least, if you look at the very first link at the top, that is our educator professional development network. So Texas State provides lots of amazing professional development for educators. All of these are free. So these are available to you. And if you follow that link, you can find all kinds of great activities, sessions you can join in on, find out about, you know, AAM, find out about, you know, anything NASA's doing. These special STEM specialists will be taking you through great activities step by step so that you can get very involved and bring these to your classroom and feel comfortable introducing all of this content to your classroom, you know, to your students, and get them as excited as we are about everything we're working on. So, so if you take a look at this day and age, I think what you'll see is that, you know, when we think of aviation, when we think of aeronautics, we often think of, you know, our fighter planes. We think of lots of different aircraft that we've been used to seeing. However, more and more aviation and aerospace is changing. It's a rapidly changing field, and our drones, otherwise known as our UAVs or our UAS, which is unmanned aircraft system, are becoming more and more a part of everything that flies in the sky. And if there's any takeaway that I would hope that you would have with this, I would really hope that you get excited about the changes that are happening, that you talk with students and get them excited about X-planes, experimental aircraft, drones, and how they fit into both society and into the practicality of what we're doing. You know, it's no longer just an image of people flying in small air taxis, but you know, there are companies that have been working with NASA for years that are planning to roll out some of their first air taxis within the next 2 years. So this is not something that we think about 25 years from now, but this is something that's happening right now as we speak. One of the important things I've learned in my time with NASA, I've been with NASA since 2011, is that, you know, NASA's on the forefront of a lot of this. And when I talk to students about the excitement of working with NASA, I think what's really exciting is that for most of the things we do, nothing has been done before. So there is no roadmap for us to follow. So when we say, how do drones fit into our airspace with all of the other aircraft? The short answer is, I don't know. And that's really what NASA does, is try to figure these things out ahead of time. NASA spends lots of time working with companies, working, you know, so everything you see in the air, you're not going to look up in the sky and see our X-planes flying all over the place. If you're lucky, you might be able to see a few of those. However, what you'll really see is the work that NASA does with companies that allows them to build the aircraft that you will see in the skies. When you fly on Southwest Airlines and you take a look at the winglets at the end of at the end of the wings that help reduce fuel consumption, it's the winglet technology that was developed at NASA, and it would, you know, and then the other companies take over and they, you know, and they use that technology and they work with NASA to turn it into something useful for the public. So, you know, get your thinking caps on, get students thinking about all the ways that drones are being integrated into society, what that might look like in the future, and really just inspire your students to kind of go nuts with it. Because when it comes down to it, you know, it's our students who are really going to be shaping what drones look like in society with us. You know, the larger scale drones, how many of those are going to fly people? I don't know. That's a great question. But you know what? Our students will know because they will be the ones doing those. So, you know, I always encourage teachers to get students to think in terms of systems. So if you fly a drone, that's great. But how does that drone interact with everyone else? How, and that's where the safety poster comes in. You know, I want students to be able to fly. I want them to get excited about flying, but I always want them to think about where they fit in with everyone else. You know, so where do students fit in? Where does our technology fit in? Where should it fit in? Many discussions, you know, erupt in classrooms about not just what drones can do, but what should they do? And you know, you can start whole discussions about, you know, what should drones be allowed to do? Where should their limits be? Where should people's responsibility lie? These are things that society grapples with. This is something that the FAA regulates lots of these different types of elements. And so again, the question